Cool. So all of you guys have mostly built a user interface before? Or this is like the fun part, I guess? So yeah, as we mentioned, Android Manifest, application-wide settings. But inside of there, it basically configures which is the activity that is launched when you click on the launcher button, right? So let's switch over to Android Studio, and we go to the manifest, and you can see that there's an action called main, and this is specifically says for this application, this is the activity that gets started. And there's a category for launcher, which means that there should be a launcher icon, on your home screen. So I have almost never seen these two left out. I think sometimes if you only have like a background service, you might not have like any launcher, and it's just something that runs in the background. That's the only time where I would never see these two used together. So if we jump straight in, we can just quickly, we can do a quick example where we create a new activity, and then we're going to change the launcher from the current activity to the second activity. So new class, let's just call it second activity. Compat activity. Again, the distinguishment between app-compat activity and regular activity depends on what you guys want for your project, like what you want to support. Cool. And then what we want to do is also create a new layout. So activity second. Okay. And then let's drop in. So there's two ways to look at the XML. There's this Design Studio, and then of course the text. Sometimes it's easier just to work in the Design Studio, so you can just drop in, let's say, we'll drop in 3 text views, one right underneath each other. Cool, and then if we go back to the Android manifest, let's add the activity. Oops. So you can kind of see how the order does matter, right? It allows, by creating the activity first, you can come back into your Android manifest and then it'll autofill for you. We can take this intent filter, paste it in there. And now if we run oh, sorry. In the second activity, I forgot to add the onCreate. So and then on our set content view, and again r.layout. Yep, activity second. Cool. So we were able to basically change the launcher to the second activity. Sweet. So one of the things that we want to talk about is how to basically lay out your UI, right? So the two most important classes are view groups and views. So does anyone want to sort of talk about and just make a distinguishment between these two outside of reading what's on the screen? So what is a view group and what is a view?
The view group is a view which can contain other views.
Right.
A view is like a leaf and terminal.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way of describing it. So would have loved to have a marker to draw this out, but if you can kind of imagine, a view group can contain other view groups or other views as children, and then views are sort of the terminal node. And so you can imagine this, if you actually look at the XML and you actually like draw them out, it'll create like a tree. So what's really important here is actually the depth of that tree, because if you kind of imagine Android behind the scene has to parse that and draw it, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but the more nesting you have, meaning the more view groups that contain other view groups, the further the Android platform has to traverse in order to draw, right? It has to basically go through the entire tree all the way to the bottom to basically draw the UI. So you do want to think about like the depth of your views. Oh, okay. Thanks. So yeah, you would see like, let's say like a relative. If we say we start with a relative layout, we have a linear layout. Sorry, I'm using shorthand. And maybe we have like a button here, and then instead we have a button or text. You can sort of see what that looks like, right? So we have relative layout, we have linear layout, text view, button, and then a button, right? So it's a tree, and of course you can see the height.
It's view row.
What was that?
It's view row.
View
Row.
View group. So these are view groups,
Yeah.
and then these are views,
Oh.
right? Because the views are sort of the nodes, right? And a view generally is basically something that accepts user interaction. So like button, text view or an edit text. And a view group simply talks about how do you lay out the children within inside of itself. But you can imagine, so we've seen, depending on like the type of phone that is being used, if this goes too deep, it becomes a very big performance problem. Cool. Sweet. So everything for the most part is specified in XML. It makes it easier for the developer to specify a UI layout. And so the action of taking this resource file or this layout file and assigning it to an activity and calling this set content view is called inflation. So as I mentioned, the framework has a very set structure. So when you reference this r.layout. Whatever the layout file name is, what it's doing is it's reaching out, grabbing that file, parsing it, and then expanding it, right? That's why it's called inflation. So it's actually a very costly process because there's like basically it's reaching out, has to locate the file that you want, and then it has to bring it in, and then basically create this entire tree, right? And basically draw it. Is that part clear for everyone? Cool. Sweet. So there are a lot of different activity layout types. So can you name a few outside of relative layouts? I think some of you have worked with this in your pre-work, but what are some other layout groups? Linear layout? Table layout? All right.
Grid view.
Constraint layout.
Yeah, constraint layout. That's a newer one, right? That's a
Frame layout.
frame layout. Okay.
Oh, frame.
Yep, that's right.
Grid.
Linear layout.
Linear layout. Yep. Grid, right? So the two most common though are of course relative and linear layout. So relative talks about how you place your child views with respect to each other. And then linear layout, of course, enforces either horizontal or vertical configuration. So you don't have to talk about placing, they're either placed one under each other or one side to side. So for linear layout, of course, as I mentioned, horizontal versus linear. So how many people use linear layout for their to-do app?
Before I use linear layout, but when my keyboard show up as soft broke, and I need to change the linear layout to release layout.
Cool. So for, again, relative layout, you talk about alignment between individual components. So how it aligns to its parent. So for, let's say, a button, you can say, I want the button to be aligned to the right, aligned to the left, on the bottom. And of course, there's also relative to its siblings. You can say you want the layout to be aligned to the top of another sibling, to the bottom of another sibling, so on and so forth. Sweet. So in this example, we have an edit text, search button, and a grid view. And so we can see that for the edit text, we want it to be laid out to the left of the button search. And then the grid view, we want this to be laid out below the edit text. Any questions on this? How that works?
What is different of layout align bottom and layout align parent bottom?
So you're saying this? Parent top?
No, align bottom.
Align bottom. So this is saying that you want to align, sorry, this? Are you saying this?
So it's the same align to right.
So you're saying that,
So you mean that what is the difference between align bottom and align parent bottom, right?
yeah, so
The difference between align bottom and align parent bottom.
okay, so aligned bottom is aligning relative to your siblings, and aligned parent bottom is relative to your parent. So the how should I draw this? Yes.
QS.
So this is your relative layout, right? So this is the containing view. And then one is specifying where this is located relative to the parent, right? Your larger view. And the other is relative to each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for that case, I usually use layout to right of edit text. So what is the difference between align bottom and to right of? I think it's not different.
Do you want to point at what your sorry, which one? Align parent.
Indicate they edit text and button.
Mm-hmm.
I usually use the button layout to right of edit text, and you use align bottom. And it's the no difference.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. So yeah, there's alignment. So basically, we're saying that this and has to be the same as the bottom of this, right?
Yeah.
I think I get what he's saying.
Okay.
Right? He's saying you normally just say align this button to right of the text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's enough if you have the same height.
Yeah.
But in some cases, aligning bottom of A and B is nicer. Right? The text may be here, the search may be up here. So if you have A here, B here, a line not just right, that's not enough. You need also a line
Yeah.
bottom.
So yeah, this can basically, yeah, that's a good point, because basically this, in this case, we actually don't see what the full size of that text view is. So that text view can be much bigger.
Yeah.
So it could go all the way down here, and then by saying align bottom. Right. But yeah, I think either one can work. It just depends on what UI you're trying to create. Cool. Any other questions?
I see the option as a align baseline
There's a lot of align.
baseline of in the relative layout. There's in the attribute that's align baseline.
So,
Baseline and bottom. Sometimes baseline and bottom is the same, and sometimes
Right.
they're not.
they're not, right. So, yeah, so we actually have, let's see if, so what I would do is I would refer to what that means, because sometimes baseline depends on where the text is placed within it. So, so in this case, let's say we talk about the text view, right? So you have the part where you can write text, and then you also have that line, that line on the bottom. So if you say bottom, it's like the bottom of the view. If you say baseline, it's relative to where the text is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cool, so as we mentioned, we can go through there's a lot of different layouts that we can use. Some are not mentioned, such as the constraint layout, which is a little bit newer. But on top of linear layout, relative layout, there's also table layout, which is meant for arranging children into rows and columns, frame layout, and grid layout as well. So you can definitely go in and read more about each one of those. Cool, so let's go ahead and dive into a demo for playing around with linear layout. Sweet, so what we want to talk about is are these special definitions for sizing, right? So there's two. You can use again DP, density independent pixels, or you can actually use something called these two keywords: match parent and wrap content. So match parent is basically saying that we want to size this individual view to be the same width or height of the parent. And then wrap content is simply saying we want to just wrap what's the size of we want to basically just wrap, sorry, what's the best way to describe this? We want to basically just make the size of the view basically what it takes to display the entire, that specific view. So for example, in a text view, you would only show the text, right? And then it wouldn't make it any bigger than that. Sorry, does that make sense for you guys? Or you guys want me to explain a little bit more? So imagine if we have this view right here, this hierarchy. You have potentially a linear layout that's inside a relative layout that says match parent. This relative layout is going to get drawn and they're going to size it. And then it'll take a look at the linear layout and say that we want it to be the same width as the relative layout. And then it'll go down and say, okay, we have a text view. Is it a specific size? Do you want to size it relative to the parent, or do we want to so on and so forth? And it'll basically traverse this entire tree and basically size accordingly.
It's okay.
It's okay? All right, cool. So of course we could basically change each one of these to basically have like a specific size. So let's change this width to be, let's say, 50 dp. And this also to be 50 dp. And you can see what that looks like. So we can actually change the background to have, let's say, a color so that we can see what it looks like. So have a color. Alright, sweet. And then oh, sorry, and then I will actually change this as well. Cool. So you can see how that sizing is different, right? Match parent for the width covers the entire parent, and then those individual ones are only 50 density independent pixels.
What happens if we set the layout with lower than the actual content?
Sure. Because the layout height is set to wrap content, let's do it and you'll see exactly what happens. So do you see? It wrapped, right? And if you want, we can try to change this. So let's say independent. And see, it cut, right? So the other thing that is sometimes used is layout weight. So this actually isn't used that much in practice, but it specifies some level of scaling, right? So let's say within a view group, it looks at the children and says, okay, well, I have a layout weight of 1 here. It will try to scale that as much as possible. But if you have, for example, if this text view here was a layout weight of 3, it will try to take 3/4 of the screen. It'll try to, and for the other one, it will try to take 1/4 of the screen. But if you only have layout 1 and nothing specified here, this one will try to take the full size of the screen. Does that make sense? So one of the reasons why you had to switch from relative,
Yeah, because I use one.
yes.
Some, right,
But if you, I think if you actually left out the layout weight for 1,
yeah,
it would have, it would have rescaled appropriately.
everything broke.
Right. So if you want, we can go through an example of that. Right? So let's say we change this. So the initial text view has a height of wrap content, and the other one has initially a 0. When you say 0, it actually takes the weight and it will resize if you have weight. So basically, weight takes priority. Does that make sense? Any questions here? Sorry.
If it says the haze as something different than 0 dB, this also display the same as if we have the layout weights and the layout height.
Yeah. So layout weight takes priority.
And how does it know when the weights mean for the width on the haze? When the layout weights for the width on the haze.
I understand it. This question is whether the layout weight is the priority to the layout height or the layout width.
Oh, so in this case, it's a linear layout, right? So we set it to be vertical, right? So yeah, it would adjust the height. Correct?
So it depends on the orientation.
Yeah.
It's not a linear layout.
Yeah,
it's
so
a relative layout.
Exactly. The layout weight when so this is a specific indicator for linear layout weight. Does that make sense? Cool. So that wraps up layouts. Any questions here? Like everything we talked about, everything from view groups, XML inflation, and of course layout parameters. So the other thing I forgot to mention though is that you of course can write this in code, right? Right now we've done all of the configuration in XML, but you can actually write this out like new relative layout, assign like height, assign weight, like assign width, assign height, assign layout weight, assign orientation. So the XML is not needed necessarily. So if you actually go back to your activity and you say set content view, you can see that it actually takes a view as well as a resource ID. So in this case, the resource ID would be specific to an XML file, but you can also create the view directly. Any questions?
Sorry, I also we can do the what's the Bion relationship slide. I had a question that relate relative layout. What's the based on relationship?
It's parent.
Huh?
It's parent.
As relative layout.
Yeah.
You have the more on keep going next slide.
Next one.
Actually,
Back.
yeah, this slide.
Oh, okay. This slide.
Can you write the move to anyone can see?
Sorry.
In review, you define align parallel left, align parallel right, and I think this review will at the center of the view, but in the demo, it's not at the center.
So why would you think it's center? Align parent top, align parent right.
Align parallel left
Okay, align parent left.
and align parallel right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you think it'd be centered, but then you also have layout below.
I expect it will be center in horizontal.
Because what does it mean like when you say the left and you say the right, it will become center.
Oh no. So right. So basically, what this is saying is that, okay, I see where the confusion is. So you're saying that you want, if we actually go back and look at where align parent left is and where align parent right is, so you're not specifying width, right? So by specifying left and right, it's saying stretch all the way out. And then also below, right? Below.
I'm not confused about vertical, what in horizontal. I think it will be the
So what he's pointing to see Android 1, Android 2, Android 3 in the first row.
Oh, these three?
Yeah, the padding on the right hand side is a lot bigger. The margin on the right hand side is a lot bigger than on the left.
Well, so the reason
So
why
it's
that's
the
happening.
boundary of the grid view.
Oh, so the reason why that's happening is actually because in the grid view, each one is placed on the far left and top of the cell, right? So the cell is actually, so this doesn't do it justice because basically the grid view is placing those individuals' images to the top left and top left and top of individual cells.
So grid view, if you draw the border,
Yeah.
it's actually on the right.
It actually goes
If
all
you
the way
draw a
up.
red line, actually it will look like it's spread out left and right, it's full.
Yeah.
But you see more space here because of the content.
Exactly. So unless you tell it to stretch all the way out, right?
So maybe that's 100
Yeah.
point, but you have 30 point, 30 point, 30 point. There's still another 10 point. There's space, empty space.
Cool. Yeah, actually, we should probably revise that slide to show like the background and stuff like that accordingly. Sweet. Any questions? We're going to take another break then.
2 minute break.
2-minute break. All right.